And today we have the pleasure to have with us over the phone Ms. Sonia Hachicha, who is founding member of the Professional Group Association of Translators and Interpreters from Connect, which is the Confederation of Citizen Enterprises of Tunisia. So today we are speaking with Ms. Sonia Hachicha, who is an experienced interpreter, translator, about the theme of this year's conference about translation in a connected world, opportunities and challenges, an event that was held on the sidelines of International Translation Day held yesterday. So to start off, we'd like to ask you, Sonia, when you hear the phrase translation in a connected world, what does it mean to you personally as a translator and interpreter?
Hi, Hayet. Thank you for the invitation.
You're
Great
welcome.
to be with the English language speakers' favorite radio station. So when you speak about a connected world, right now, I would say what comes to mind is how the connected world saved us during COVID, because the interconnections and the technology is what allowed us to continue to work when everything else failed during COVID. So it is actually a big opportunity, not so much at the same time as being a challenge. It's a double-edged sword for us.
Right. So in your view, what are the biggest opportunities, as you talked about that global connectivity offers to translators today?
It offers us access to technology, to many more tools. It offers us access to other markets where we don't have to travel anymore to do many jobs for clients overseas, thanks to technology. It offers us the practicality of having a multitude of dictionaries at our fingertips. We don't have to have a pile of paper dictionaries on the table anymore.
Right. And what do you see as the most pressing challenges that translators face in this increasingly interconnected world?
It's also the fact that we're losing our individuality is a problem. We're now all very interchangeable because there's always interpreters available somewhere else in the world. So we're no longer an individual. We're much more a commodity today because we're so internationally available. And it's also the fact that many people think that we've become replaceable.
Can you become replaceable?
Not really, not in this next 10 years, I would say, not happening yet.
Right.
As was discussed yesterday with our guests and experts, Mr. Ayman bin Siman and Mrs. Livia Sfersi, they both are experts in the field in digital transition, technology, and big data, and they are of the same opinion as we are, which is that, yes, machine translation, machine-assisted translation, both have made, lots of progress and many strides, but they're not about to replace us yet. The issue is not so much the experts and the technological world as it is the perception of the general world, where everybody seems to think that we're a goner, although they don't know much about our business or our industry.
So you believe that machine translation tools are not changing the role of human translators?
They are, to a certain extent, in so much as that they have made us somebody who's, I'd say, much more technologically friendly, which many of our previous generations of translators and interpreters did not always feel the need to be techies, to be computer savvy, to be technology savvy. So it's changed our profile a bit, but it's also made our life easier, and it's also created many new industries, such as all the subtitling and translation of movies and gaming. That's a whole new industry open to us. And also the new industry, which is MTPE, technically referred to as machine translation post-editing. It's created a whole new industry also.
Right. And the difference between translators and interpreters, where do you think, these tools, these machine translation tools are of a great help? Are they of a great help for translators or for interpreters?
Well, currently, mostly for translators, with the technology for interpreters is still very, very early stages and very unreliable. For translators, it offers the opportunity of using what we call translation memories, where
Right.
if you translated a text, it keeps the memory, keeps the words, basically, because artificial intelligence isn't so much an intelligence as it is a database of existing translated text and translation memories. So it gives you like a big warehouse that you can pull from.
Right.
But for interpreters, the technology is still very lagging behind because it's difficult to work with, sound quality, people in the room, different accents, highly technical subjects, humor. Many of these things are still very, very difficult for a
Right.
machine to deal with,
Right.
with all the machine learning happening, but they're still not there.
Right. So it brings actually, you made a transition to my next question. So how should translators deal with culturally sensitive or politically charged content?
Those are definitely subjects that are not up for machine translation or interpretation. Exactly. This is where, the human touch is still very much needed. I mean, some of the recent events between interpreters and Mr. Trump or Ms. Maloney or Trump's visit to the leader of North Korea are the examples of how if you had left these things to a machine, I mean, as is the situations got complicated,
Right.
but with a machine, it would have definitely been a diplomatic disaster. So we have to tread very carefully, and this is why the machine knows the language, but we know the language and the culture behind it.
That's
You
right.
have to be very diplomatic and be aware of current events, of the history and culture of every, context you're working in and with.
That's right. And do you believe that translators have a role in shaping cross-cultural understanding or even diplomacy?
Yes, because one of the criteria often that we end up with is, in addition to our formal education, often in languages, but also in other fields such as law or journalism, because interpreters and translators come from many different backgrounds. One of the criteria that you will often see is the interpreters and translators have often had a residential or a stay in the country of the language they're learning, because it helps capture cultural differences. A language is nothing without its culture.
Right, right. And a language is culture, of course. And how does working in a hyper-connected world affect linguistic diversity? Does it help preserve minority languages or threaten them, for instance?
It does preserve them because you actually finally have access to much more talent that speaks these rare languages. But it's also a very English language dominance, nowadays in this hyper-connected world, as we were discussing yesterday on our panel with Mrs. Hachicha and Nadia Zweden, also as our two panelists from the professional association, is that we need to stay connected, but also not everything that artificial intelligence does is in English. So if you're not looking for English sources or English text or English references, it's very hard, or the source language is very rare.
Right, right. So there are some skills that maybe are needed beyond language mastery, which are becoming increasingly important for translators today, aren't they?
Yes, of course. One of these skills has always been the case, which is a very wide cultural, the awareness and general culture. You need to be aware of what's happening internationally, locally, in science, in arts. You need to be, always on the pulse with current events.
Right.
Whether it goes from, Taylor Swift to the war in Sudan, you have to be aware because any of these matters can always come up in our jobs. And so you need to always be connected. And also, you also need to become much more technologically friendly today.
Right,
you need to be able to use these tools. You need to be able to connect to all the new modern platforms for working online and remotely with the rest of the world, not just be limited to events happening in Tunis.
Right,
So
right.
yes, the aloof intellectual book carrying a translator-interpreter of the 70s needs to catch up, shall we say. And many have. It's just amazing the mental flexibility of many of the colleagues, young and less young, that are now all technology friendly.
Right, and this is why, I mean, being in a hyper-connected world is really very helpful in cases like these. So how do you see the profession evolving in the next 10 to 15 years?
I would say I'm not a gambling person. I don't believe in casinos because to predict our industry at the moment is very much playing poker in Vegas. We know that it's not disappearing tomorrow, but it's headed in a totally different world where we need to be able to use the technology as our friend and not as our enemy.
And not as a competitor as well. Not as a competitor as well.
No, it's a tool. It's not a competitor.
It's a tool, that's right.
It's a tool.
Mm-hmm. Right. So if you could give a piece of advice to a future translator working in this connected world, what would it be, Sonia?
Be curious, be passionate about this business, and don't think that anybody is irreplaceable.
So just to wrap up, so the piece of advice that you said, then if you could go back on that.
Well, I would like to tell our future and new colleagues, be curious, be passionate, be open. It's a great big world out there, and the machines are there to help us. They're not stealing from us. We need to adapt them and adopt to them and enjoy what they bring.
Well, Sonia, thank you very much for sharing your insights and experiences with us today.